For this week's installment of Realist History, we're going to talk about women in the progressive era. Okay? Women in the progressive era. We're going to get into some good shit. All right, but before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button now. All right, I am your homeboy first, and this is The Realest. Most entertaining show in the game. Put it on something. Again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that share button, y'all. Put all your people on it. Okay, but let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. All right. Our objectives for this week are to analyze the impact of changes in women's education on women's roles in society, explain what women did to win workers' rights and to improve family life, and lastly, evaluate the tactics women use to win passage of the 19th Amendment. All right, so let's get it. Let's get into some terms and people that y'all will be seeing, all right, throughout the lesson today. All right, Florence Kelley founded the National Consumers League, known as the NCL. And what they did was label and publicize goods produced under fair, safe, and healthy working conditions. All right. The temperance movement was a campaign to end the production, sale, and use of alcohol. Margaret Sanger opened the first birth control clinic. Okay. Ida B. Wells, she helped to found the National Association of Colored Women. I've talked to y'all about her before. I don't know if I'm related to her, but I sure hope that I am. A queen from Mississippi. All right. Suffrage, the right to vote. Carrie Chapman Catt, president of the National American Woman Suffrage Association. She campaigned to pass women's suffrage at both the state and national levels. NAWSA is the National American Women's Suffrage Association. That was founded by Carrie Chapman Catt. Alice Paul, social activist who led women to picket at the White House. Okay. In the 19th Amendment, which was passed in 1919, it was ratified in 1920, though. Okay. And it granted women the right to vote. All right. Let's go, y'all. All right. So, how did women of the progressive era make progress and win the right to vote? All right. In the early 1900s, men and women were no longer content playing a limited role in society. Activists helped bring about progressive reforms, including women's suffrage. Women would continue the struggle to expand their roles and rights in the future. All right. So, by the early 1900s, a growing number of middle-class women wanted to do more than stay at home as wives and mothers. Colleges like Pennsylvania's Bryn Mawr and New York's School of Social Work armed middle-class women with education and modern ideas. However, most poor women continue to labor long hours, often under dangerous or dirty conditions. Now, let's pause for a second. All right. Let's go back to the founding of this nation, okay? And those so-called founding fathers. Most of us focus on the fact that them motherfuckers were racist as fuck. Okay? Racist as fuck. Most of us real ones, that is. Some of us deify them motherfuckers. All right? But real ones, we look at them and say, them motherfuckers were enslavers. Okay? Enslavers. But I think a lot of people gloss over the fact them motherfuckers were also sexist. They were sexist. They didn't have any women up in there being involved in how this country should be set up. You feel me? And they didn't give women the right to vote. They thought that political matters were things for men. Okay? And so you reached a point in this country, as it says, by the early 1900s, you had a lot of women that were like, hold on, Mike. We want to say so in this bitch too. Now, I'm sure there were women way before that who had that same feeling, but I'm saying by the early 1900s, it had reached a peak in so much so that you're gonna see that women got hella organized to go ahead and fight for a bigger role in this goddamn society. Now, also, I want y'all to pay attention to what it said down there. Okay. It said at the time we're talking about middle class women wanted to do more than stay at home as wives and mothers. Poor women had already been doing that shit. Poor women had already been having to fucking work in some of those sweatshops that we talked about in earlier chapters. Poor women had been having to work in the fucking fields and shit. You know what I'm talking about? Particularly black women. Black women had to go out there in them goddamn fields and sharecroppers too. You know what I'm saying? So this whole myth that women were just stay-at-home moms pre the 1960s and 70s. Come on, man. It's largely bullshit for poor women. Okay. That was more of a middle class, upper class type of shit that was going on, type of thing that was going on. All right, let's go. Progressive reforms addressed working women's conditions. They worked long hours in factories and sweatshops or as maids, laundresses, or servants. They were paid less and often didn't get to keep their wages. They were intimidated and bullied by employers. Okay. Now, unfortunately, women still get paid less on average than men after all these motherfucking years, and we're gonna see women fight against that, throughout history. We'll get to a lot of that shit later on. But definitely back then they were paid less. And the justification was that the man is the breadwinner, therefore the man needs more money than the woman. Okay. Come on, bro. We doing the same motherfucking job. What the fuck? You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. And like I said, often they didn't get to keep their wages. Again, the thought being the man needs that goddamn money, not the woman. And then them saying, and again, I didn't write these slides, by the way. Okay, that's what I'm saying. They said this, they said that. These slides were written by various doctorate holders. So these slides accompany the textbook I used to teach out of. Okay. So if you got an issue with the facts in this bitch, you got an issue with these historians. Okay, but I digress. But them saying that the women were intimidated and bullied by employers, I think y'all to play make-believe. Like, now back then, them motherfuckers were getting away with that shit, Jack. Them motherfuckers get away with that shit a lot today. But back then, you ain't have all these motherfucking laws and rules in play. You ain't finna just go to HR and shit because your employer said some fucked up shit to you as a woman, or sexually harassed you or some shit, or said you gonna lose this job if you don't fuck me, that kind of shit. You know what I'm talking about? Take yourself out of the 2025 mindset. You gotta play make believe. You know what I'm talking about? Take your ass back to the 1905 mindset. This was a different fucking country. All right, and these women gonna be fighting to change that shit. All right, let's go. All right, reformers saw limiting the length of a woman's workday as an important goal and succeeded in several states. In Muller versus Oregon, the Supreme Court ruled that states could legally limit a women's workday. And that's a typo right there. It should say legally limit women's workday. Okay, I apologize. I didn't catch that typo in there before I shared this with you. I apologize. All right. It says this ruling recognized the unique role of women as mothers. Now, that one right there is interesting. That one is interesting because some progressive women, when we move forward in history, gonna find that shit like that problematic. Because if you're gonna treat women differently by statute because of their role as mother, then that can lead to you writing laws discriminating against women because of their role as a mother. You see what I'm saying? Like, it gets kind of tricky. But in this case, I guess that's what they were pushing for. You know what I'm saying? The fact that, hey, they like, yeah, damn it, you got these women working all fucking day. Who gonna see about their goddamn child? You feel me? So very interesting, and very interesting to see how these arguments change over time. Let's go. In 1899, Florence Kelley founded the Women's Trade Union League, which worked for a federal minimum wage and a national 8-hour workday. See, motherfuckers take that shit for granted. It ain't always been like that, y'all. All right. The WTUL also created the first workers' strike fund, which helped support families who refused to work in unsafe or unfair conditions. All right. Progressives supported the temperance movement. Okay. This one is interesting. I wonder how y'all feel about this. All right. It says they felt that alcohol often led men to spend their earnings on liquor, neglect their families, and abuse their wives. Got a lot of truth to it. The Women's Christian Temperance Union grew steadily until the passage of the 18th Amendment, which banned the sale and production of alcohol in 1919. All right, now, the reason why I said I'm interested in how y'all feel about this, because I know a lot of motherfuckers love to drink, okay? But what you see there in that second sentence on the slide, that is true too. You know what I'm saying? A lot of motherfuckers do be blowing their money on liquor and neglecting their families when they get drunk. And all forms of violence increase when you add liquor in it, whether it be domestic violence or violence in the club and shit. You know, violence increases when you add liquor into the mix. So because of this, these women were like, no, shit, we need to ban this shit. You know what I'm saying? The society would get better if we ban this shit. Okay? And that was their opinion. I want to show y'all this picture real quick. I used to show this to my students, and they used to get a kick out of this. Hold on, let me make it bigger for you. All right. So you see, these ladies right here were supporters of the temperance movement. Okay, again, the movement to ban alcohol in America. All right, a successful movement, by the way. Just told you they got that shit done with the 18th Amendment banning alcohol. Okay, and these ladies said, "Lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours." And my students used to be so goddamn crazy. They were like, "Don't nobody want them ugly women no way." But somebody wanted them. What that motherfucker say on Friday? Bitch, I know somebody that like it. Something like that. Somebody like these women. You feel me? And these women let it be known. Shit. Lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours. All right. So that goddamn temperance movement was successful. Alcohol was eventually banned, leading to a time period we know as prohibition. And we'll talk about how effective it was. Obviously, it didn't last because we know liquor is legal now, but we ain't there yet. We'll talk more about that later on. All right, let's go. In 1916, Margaret Sanger opened the first birth control clinic. She believed that having fewer children would lead to healthier women. She was jailed. The courts eventually ruled that doctors could give out family planning information. In 1921, Sanger founded the American Birth Control League to make information available to women. Now, this lady right here is both lionized by progressive women and also condemned by some progressives who suspect or who charge her with supporting racist ideas as it regards to eugenics. Eugenics was this bullshit ass notion in the early 1900s and shit that population control was needed and that I guess they would say high quality people need to have more babies and low quality people need to have fewer babies, and birth control could help with that. And so some people accuse her of being racist and that she was trying to say that black people were low quality and trying to eliminate them. Now, there's a lot of stuff online about that. I found a Time magazine article that kind of refutes the charges against her of racism. And it says this. It says, much of the controversy stems from a 1939 letter in which Sanger outlined her plan to reach out to Black leaders, specifically ministers, to help dispel community suspicions about the family planning clinics she was opening in the South. And here's the quote. It says, we do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members, she wrote. It was, as the Washington Post called it, an inartfully written sentence, but one that, in context, describes the sort of preposterous allegations she feared, not her actual mission. So basically what they're saying is she was trying to reach out to these Black ministers in the South and say, hey, let's get in front of this. I don't want none of y'all, none of the members of your congregation to be thinking I'm trying to eliminate Black folks. You know what I'm saying? But they're saying that she wrote that sentence in such a fucked up ass way that it made it seem like that's indeed what she was trying to do. Hell, it also goes on to say Dr. King thought highly of her. Okay. It says in 1966, Martin Luther King Jr. made clear that he agreed that Sanger's life work was anything but inhumane. In 1966, when King received Planned Parenthood and her American Birth Control League was like the forerunner of Planned Parenthood. Okay. My bad, I digress. In 1966, when King received Planned Parenthood's Margaret Sanger Award in Human Rights, he praised her contribution to the Black community. There's a striking this is a quote from Dr. King. There's a striking kinship between our movement and Margaret Sanger's early efforts, he said. Margaret Sanger had to commit what was then called a crime in order to enrich humanity. And today we honor her courage and vision. Okay. So let's just say she's controversial. All right. Again, some people love her. Some people view her as a civil rights activist. Definitely a women's rights activist because they're saying that shit. When you have children, or the decision to have children is the biggest decision that a woman can make in many people's eyes. You know, to have control of her own body and what her body has to go through in carrying a child in childbirth, they would argue that that's paramount because it's uniquely a feminine thing. So, and like I said, others highly criticize her for her support of eugenics. I believe rightly so. You feel whether it was race based or not. I don't think motherfuckers should be controlling who making the babies through government efforts or various organizations' efforts. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully through better education, people who don't need to be having children because they can't afford the children or whatever the case is, will make better sexual decisions, especially with all the birth control options that are out there, especially today. You feel me? But that is Margaret Sanger. All right, I'm gonna learn more about her. I'm sure they got some shit out there, some documentaries, some books, you know, somebody. So if I learn more about her, I'll share that with y'all. Let's go. All right, African Americans also work for women's rights. Ida B. Wells founded the National Association of Colored Women NACW in 1896. The NACW supported daycare centers for the children of working parents. Wells also worked for suffrage, to end lynchings, and to stop segregation in the Chicago schools. Okay, so this is Ida B. Wells right here. You may see her listed as Ida B. Wells Barnett. You feel me? An intelligent motherfucking gangster. Okay, this is one of those kind of people who inspire me. Okay, brilliant lady, but fucking courageous lady, risking her life to expose lynchings and being a part of the women's suffrage movement, facing racism from some of her fellow white suffragettes who felt like, oh yeah, we want the franchise, but no, fuck y'all black women, y'all need to stay to the back. Like this woman fighting all kind of shit on every side. And like I said, she's a queen from Holly Springs, Mississippi. You feel me? Shout out to Ida B. Wells, one of my heroes. Let's go. All right. Ultimately, suffrage was seen as the only way to ensure that government protected children, fostered education, and supported family life. Since the 1860s, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton worked relentlessly for women's suffrage. Still, by the 1890s, only Wyoming and Colorado allowed women to vote. I talked to y'all about them previously, but let's go a little deeper today. All right, in the whole women's suffrage movement. All right, in 1917, social activists led by Alice Paul formed the National Woman's Party. Their radical actions made the suffrage movement's goals seem less dramatic by comparison. The NWP picketed the White House. Hundreds of suffragettes were arrested and jailed. You feel me? So radical in this case, people act like that's extreme. So these women going in front of the White House and wanting that smoke, putting these motherfuckers on blast, like, you know what I'm saying? In 1917, you got Woodrow Wilson in office, flaming racist ass motherfucker. But in terms of a lot of his program, by this time period, he was progressive. Okay, he was for more regulation. He was for the little guy, the white man, not the black man, of course. But folks like Alice Paul up here, like, hold on, you supposed to be this progressive motherfucker. Well, where the franchise for women then, Jack? And they were willing to go in front of the White House and put these folks on blast, like, you got a world war going on. You got a world war going on in 1917. World War I was 1914 to 1918. America entered the war in 1917. These women like, hold the fuck on. Mr. President, Woodrow Wilson, you talking about we got to join this war to make the world safe for democracy. But women ain't a part of the goddamn democracy over here. What the fuck is up with that? You feel me? And so them being on that type of time made them seem, made folks like Susan B. Anthony and them seem like, okay, now we can deal with them because we don't want to deal with Alice Paul motherfucking ass. She crazy. You feel me? All right, let's go. President of the National American Suffrage Association, Carrie Chapman Catt, promoted a two-part strategy to gain the vote for women. 1, NASA lobbied Congress for a constitutional amendment. And 2, supporters, called suffragettes, used the referendum process to pass state laws. All right, check this shit out now. This is very interesting. Not all women supported suffrage. You read that right. Not all women supported suffrage. Okay? It reads, the National Association opposed to women's suffrage, feared voting would distract women from their family roles. Many men and women were offended by Paul's protest in front of the White House. A mob shredded her signs and pickets. Now, you may be wondering, hold on that first. Why in the fuck would a woman be against herself getting an expansion of her rights? You gotta remember, if you're a conservative woman, particularly if you're a religious conservative woman, religious teachers in Christianity teach that you got God. When it comes to the household, they say it's God, then it's the man, then it's the woman. You feel me? I mean, so there are men and women who think that shit. There are men and women who like, my role is to shut the fuck up about this type of shit and let my man run this. A man should be running this. You got men and women still believe this type of shit today. That's part of the reason why Kamala Harris lost. That's part of the reason why Hillary Clinton lost. Even though Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but we're not gonna get into the electoral college right now. I don't want to run my blood pressure up. But you got many folks who think a woman should not. Many women who think a woman should not run this country. You got many women who think a woman shouldn't be in these prominent leadership roles. See, it would distract women from their family roles. You got to make a decision about what you believe. Got to decide what you believe. You feel me? Let's go. States gradually granted suffrage to women, starting in the western states. Okay. Now, this is tough to see. I'm gonna see if y'all. Let's see if I can expand it a little bit for y'all. It might help. It might not. All right. Hopefully you can see it. If you can, you clearly see that states out west gave women the franchise before the rest of the country. Okay. If you look at the key, it says full suffrage before 1900. All right. So you had states like Wyoming who gave women the right to vote in that state in 1869. Okay. Utah in 1870. Colorado in 1893. Idaho in 1896. Then you have states that gave women full suffrage between 1900 and 1919. All right. So you had states again out west, pretty much some along the Great Plains. So you had like South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Montana, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, Oregon, California. Okay. And also Michigan and Michigan in the Midwest, and also New York. You feel me? But you see how the clear majority is out west. Now, you may wonder, why is that? What the fuck was going on in the West? Were they fucking with women like that? Many argue that with women settlers going out west and living their rugged lifestyle and helping their men tame the West and all that kind of shit, gave men more respect for them and shit like that. You know, they argue that. That's worth a deep dive. I'm sure some researchers probably have written books about that shit. You know what I'm talking about? But that's one of the things that I've heard and read. All right. But look at these, look at some of these other states. It said partial suffrage before 1920. You got states like Texas, North Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee, Ohio, and Maine, and Rhode Island. But all states, like my Mississippi, said, fuck that shit. It took that 19th Amendment to make them motherfuckers do it. Okay. And Mississippi wasn't the only one. New Mexico, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, up there in the north, Maryland, New Jersey, Connecticut. Connecticut didn't want to give the women the right to vote yet. Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. So it's a nice mix of the old Confederacy and New England. And one Western, New Mexico wasn't fucking with, I guess. Like, this was some controversial shit. And it still remains controversial to some people today. I heard a motherfucker on, I was watching some shit. And what was that? I think that Reese Waters. Shout out to Reese Waters. He does some good shit. I was watching him, and he be putting some of them conservative clips up in his shit. And I saw some of them conservatives on there still talking about women don't need the right to vote. I was like, God damn, these boys ain't letting up on this shit. It's 2025. But with the 19th Amendment, women would get the franchise nationally. Let's go. All right, in June 1919, The 19th Amendment was passed by Congress. Okay. The amendment stated that the vote shall not be denied or abridged on account of sex. Okay. And then it would be ratified by the states. Okay. In 1920. Okay. A constitutional amendment has to be passed by Congress, but that shit has to also be ratified by the states. You feel me? And to be specific, it takes 3/4 of the states to agree to ratify an amendment for that bitch to actually pass. So that's very difficult. Okay, that's difficult. All right. But it reads in November 1920, women nationwide voted in a presidential election for the first time, and the person who won that election was Warren G. Harding. We'll talk more about him later. So that's it, y'all. We knocked out another one. Let's go back and review some of our terms and people real quick. All right, so we talked about Florence Kelley, who founded the NCL. The NCL stood for National Consumers League, and what they did was label and publicize goods produced under fair, safe, and healthy working conditions. All right, we talked about the temperance movement, which was the movement to ban alcohol in this country. You feel me? That movement was successful. It led to the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. That time period in which alcohol was banned was known as Prohibition. Obviously, Prohibition didn't fucking work because alcohol is legal again. We'll talk about that later on. Margaret Sanger, I told y'all she was a controversial figure who's basically the mother of the birth control movement. We talked about Ida B. Wells, an intelligent gangster, hopefully my goddamn kinfolk, all right, who helped to found the National Association of Colored Women. Also, she risked her life, exposing lynchings. She was a suffragette. She was a real motherfucking one. You feel me? We talked about suffrage, which is simply the right to vote. We talked about Carrie Chapman Catt, who was the president of the National American Woman Suffrage Association. She was fighting for women's right to fucking vote. All right, we talked about Alice Paul, who was another woman fighting for women's right to vote. Social activist, she led women to picket at the White House. Motherfuckers viewed her as radical compared to some of her peers who also wanted the right to vote. And we talked about the 19th Amendment, which was passed by Congress in 1919. It was ratified by the states in 1920, and it granted women the right to vote nationwide. All right. So we knocked out another one. Y'all, I appreciate you so goddamn much for being here with me for another installment of Realist History on the Realest. Most entertaining show in the game. Put it on some.